La di la di la di la. School of schools. University of the Underground. From the Sandberg Institute in Amsterdam. The subject this week is reverse engineering economic mania.
Hello. Thank you for coming to the School of Schools. We are the University of the Underground from Sandberg, Amsterdam, and we are looking into reverse engineering economic mania. This is the third day of our 5-day program. We've already looked at the School of Influence and the School of Individuals, and today we are looking at the School of the Invisible. Jack?
Yes.
Are you excited?
I'm very excited. We have two very interesting talks coming up from Juhi and from Alex, starting with Juhi. And yeah, what do you have to say about that, Joe?
I'm very excited too. Do you reckon you could set the scene to some of the people listening at home or watching on the live stream?
What, the visual scene?
Where are we? What's going on? How are
Okay,
people
so
feeling?
we're in the classroom. We're in the end of this hallway space. There are some nice flags. Can I call them flags hanging out behind us?
Yes.
Yes, there are flags. There's a big TV. There's Juhi sitting behind a table with a microphone pointing towards her. There's some people sitting down. There could be more people sitting down.
There could be.
But for those listening, there are about 500 people in the room. It's really busy. Busiest day yet, and that's good.
And how many people are listening online?
A few thousand for those
Very
who are in
good.
the room. So.
Cool, okay. And could you explain maybe some of what we've been doing on the run-up to this? What have we been looking at already?
So we're reverse engineering economic mania. So that means we've been exploring the economies based around different topics that people looked into. Day number one, the School of Influence, we had... Who was number one? Oh, you were number one.
I was the first.
How did yours go?
It was very memorable.
Very, very memorable. Okay, people loved it. Okay, day number two was mine, and I spoke about something that was very memorable as well.
It's good, and no one else mattered. Okay, so to start the day off, we've got Juhi Ham. Are you ready?
I'm nervous.
That's good. That's a yes, and here we go.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jack. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us and sharing your time with us. Time is gold. So that's what I'm going to talk about today in School of the Invisible. Is it time gold, really? So today, I'm going to talk about especially more backstage of economic, which is invisible. I said backstage because the activities that are going on around us that is still considered as exchange, but not necessarily related to money directly, but still influencing the architecture of entire economy for sure. And to talk about invisible backstage, I invited 3 other panels who are expertise on hidden economy in their life, having different hats. Joseph Please, web designer, and who are having a job and leisure that is crossing between heaven and hell. And Malena Argucci, set designer and costume designer, who is also working in the market and also running her own theater company. And Jack Wahon, plumber and a graphic designer. Before inviting those expertise, I will explain a little bit more about idea about backstage economy related to time. As I mentioned earlier, time is gold, and as much as we work, we earn money, mostly. Not everyone, but mostly. Spending time can be divided into leisure time and working time and rest time. I said the working time and leisure time, rest time, working more like earning money for living, and leisure time that we can still work, but still more toward the passion or belief. And rest is more charging ourselves or having a private time or sleeping or chilling time. I found that different attitudes between working and leisure and rest. Working is more passive, as we can see from a lot of memes that's saying, finally, I get a day off work, or coming home from work, like, I deserve an award for not killing bitches. Or when people ask how I handle this job, I'm dead inside. Really. Literally 5 minutes into work, I gotta get out of here. I think I'm going to lose it. So like this kind of meme, we don't really like our job. So we need to fulfill something else with leisure, or that could be a volunteer work that could do something, satisfy our own mental charging. And the time for rest is literally resting for physical charging. So most of the time we use our 24 hours in work and the rest of time for sleeping. And if you're lucky, you can have a little bit of leisure time that could help for our fulfillment or achievement. That's also, and for 20 years in modern society, we have an education to get a job to earn money. But during the summer, I found something interesting that doesn't really correspond to this. I had 4 days of experience in ship that called Tres Hombres, which is a cargo shipping that sails only with wind, without any motor, with the aim of sustainability. But the people here, most of them are working for free, or they have to pay to work there. It's very strange, I thought. It's a heavy work. You need to pull the rope, and then you need to go to the mast. You need to handle the heavy cargo. And they pay for this to have experience of shipping. And also, other thing that confused me was, on modern times, as much as time you spend, as I already said, you earn more money, which means you need to spend less time on moving stuff so that you can have more efficiency. But in Tres Hombres, they don't take so much cargo. They only take 15 tons, while other shipping boats that you see normally with many containers, 153,000 tons is considered as not much, but Tres Hombres handle only 35 tons. And they travel 8 months to travel Atlantic Ocean, while other ships, the big ships, takes 20 to 1 month to back and forth. And in Tres Hombres, there's 20 to 15 people who is working for 15 tons, and while the other ship is 250 people are working for 153,000 tons. So this is not time efficient, and requires heavy human labors. But how people willing to pay and join Tres Hombres? I thought people don't like their job, as I said already earlier in the meme. They even join Tres Hombres' journey after the harbor. After they bring the cacao from Caribbean to Amsterdam, they had to bring a cacao to factory in Amsterdam. So people come who couldn't join this 8 months of journey. They come and with their cargo bike, and then they take the cacao from the harbor to the factory. So I thought balancing between leisure for satisfaction, which is more mental charging, is also important next to the physical charging, which is sleeping or just chilling that is a little bit more passive charging. So I would invite 3 panels, Malena Argucci, Joseph Please, and Jack Wacon. Welcome. Our 3 panels, please.
Sit down. Oh, no, I've got the dangerous bit in the middle of the bench.
This is on. This is on.
Hello, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, my name is Malena and I'm also a student of the University of the Underground.
What's your job?
I am a set and costume designer for theater. I have my own theater company in London, and I work sometimes as a market trader.
Hello, I'm Joseph Please. I'm quite nervous, never done this before. I'm a web designer and graphic designer. I've been working freelance for about 3 years now. I'm also a student of the University of the Underground at the same time.
And my name's Jack Waghorn. For this purposes of this, I'm going to transport myself back to when I was working for a couple of years as like a tradesperson or assisting with plumbing. Did that bit of manual labor. So I don't do that anymore because I'm studying currently to not do jobs like that. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to go into that time again.
Thank you. I will ask, how are you balancing yourself with several hats with time amount that we have got?
So usually what happens for me is that I tend to work 6 to 8 hours on day jobs, either working commercially, doing costumes instead, or being a market trader, and then the other 6 or 7 hours of the day are spent in rehearsals that I am not paid for because, I organize them myself.
Very good. So my days usually, it really changes from day to day. So one day I may work from 7 in the morning till 10 at night and blast through it, and then the next day I'll be burnt out and will do nothing apart from stare at the wall. And also my day is really dictated by whatever email I receive that day. So I could wake up and have no work, and then by 1 o'clock I could have work that means I have to do that. So really no structure between my work and leisure whatsoever.
Okay, and what I was doing was kind of, completely structured. It was the very typical 5-day week, starting at 8 a.m. each day in 8 hours. As soon as 4 o'clock was over, the day was done and paid hourly, so you just knew you were going to go home then. So kind of the opposite to you two, I suppose.
Have you ever did a volunteer yourself to invest on whatever whatever project that you believed in?
I can start. I do, as in do I give my work for free, essentially, for what I believe? Yeah, I mean, yes, half and half. I end up doing a lot of free work because it's sort of, unfortunately, the way a lot of things go. But also, I do a lot of, I give a lot of my, because I build websites and everyone wants a website, I end up doing a lot of things for friends, which is, I find it's always easier to do it for free for a friend than to get paid by a friend, because it always becomes a very awkward relationship. So sometimes doing things for free is a bit nicer because it stops the thing that I enjoy doing becoming a sort of a strange transaction where I sort of become, the employee of a friend for a very small amount of money, and it just becomes really uncomfortable and horrible.
I guess for the type of work I was doing, I completely wouldn't do it if I wasn't getting paid. So it's like really a means to an end, and there's no other reason for doing it. And I would never volunteer my time because it's not fun. But whereas doing a graphic design job, there's totally different sort of reason to do those sort of things. So it's kind of hard to compare, really, I suppose.
I agree with both Joe and Jack. I have never offered my time for free to do market work or nannying or any other of my day jobs. But in terms of theater, I do it very often, either because I enjoy the project and I believe in it, or because it allows me to have a little bit more freedom and do what I like to do. So I do that for free a lot.
Especially for Joe, can I ask what extent you called as a friend that you can do work for free?
How good a friend do you have to be to have a free job?
Exactly.
That's a really good question. Oh, I don't know. It's true. There's really a line because if it's a friend of a friend, it's just I'm not going to do it. But I guess if you knew me before I started making websites, you can probably get a website for free. That's probably the line.
When I knew you, you already were doing a web design.
I made you a website. It's fine, Juhi. That's good.
And Jack?
Yes.
I know that also you're also working a lot on video making.
I am now, yeah.
Do you think one day this will become your job that earn money, or you don't want to?
I think it's a much more enjoyable way of earning money than stripping out toilets and looking at shit all the time. And so I would much rather do boring video editing jobs, kind of more commercial work that's graphic design related, where I get to sit on my laptop in a nice warm room. I'd much rather do that, make that my career, than some really kind of boring manual job.
Can I ask a similar question to Male? Do you think, do you believe in the theater job will come back to earning money, or you don't want to? Would that change your attitude toward the theater?
Yes, I think since I decided, or I clearly made it my purpose for theater to be my livelihood, my relationship to it has changed, and I started behaving the same way I behave on my paid jobs within my own projects. But I really do hope that it doesn't become a burden for me. I would hate for that to happen. So yeah, I think it's staying aware and keeping it my passion and setting boundaries.
Thank you, Male. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jack. And for the future, how do you see the balance of three of those? The rest and job and leisure?
I kind of hope I get a little bit more rest time and stop taking rest time to compensate for work. But other than that, I hope I keep on enjoying and mixing leisure and work. I really do.
I don't really know what the future is. I don't know how, if it carries on like it is now, I probably can't sustain it, because being freelance and having to sort of fight for being paid is just the most uncomfortable thing. Even currently right now, I have 2 invoices that haven't been paid in 2 months, and I can't pay rent. And it's just like no emails being answered. Maybe I should shout out now to them, pay me. And it's really horrible. It's like you can't control those things. So actually, I would really happily give up what I'm doing for some structure, because having no structure is just, it's too much actually. It's not really very fun.
Yeah, and I think for me, having had a very structured job where you know exactly when you're going to work and you know when it's going to be over, and now doing work that is blurring those lines between leisure and work hours, I would hope to kind of maintain some of that structure and to really kind of to know when I'm going to work and when I'm not going to, and to kind of transfer some of that over. But like you say, it's not always as easy as saying.
Yeah, I think it comes down to how good you are as an entrepreneur, essentially. And I'm really bad at it, but I'm quite good at web design. And that's all I can really say. My website. So they can see it and see your work. That's true. But no, yeah. Sorry, I cut you off there.
Oh no, that was good.
That was a little roll on. Radio.
I have 2 last questions, very quick. You can answer very short. Yeah. One is, how would you value your productivity, in circumstance of value? So, your theater project is also valuable, which is also different value from the money that you're earning from market. And also Joe's free work that is doing for your friend doesn't mean that it's less valuable than you get the project that you get paid. And Jack's plumbing work is also valuable. Sorry. Sorry. Jack's plumbing work and the video work and the graphic work that is valuable than as much as, or more or equally valuable than as your plumbing work that you've been doing for money. And in that way, the meaning of productivity that relate to value can be changed. Can you shortly tell in one sentence what would be the meaning of productivity in that sense?
I hope I understood your question correctly. I think my passion work is much more valuable than my day job, but I get paid a lot more for my day job. I like those two to be swapped around.
I guess the progress you make when you're doing something kind of creative and you're honing your skills as like a designer, like we are, there seems to be a bit more kind of value in chipping away at improving those skills by doing projects and then getting work and being productive in that sort of way. So I would say that more time spent doing creative work is perhaps more valuable than doing work that is just to earn money, because it's not necessarily just, I don't know how that was beneficial, but...
So what's
see
the
what I mean?
value of my productivity? Okay, well, I think the value of my productivity is probably...
Or how would you value,
How do I value my productivity?
how valuable is your productivity? Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, so I think with what I do, it's valued based on on the knowledge that I have compared to what other people have. So I have a skill set that most people can't do, and there's a sort of magic within that which definitely allows you to charge a certain amount, and also for people to really take advantage of that. So I think there's something quite interesting there. I have friends who don't know how to do that stuff. Well, not friends, I know people who have charged a lot of money for essentially doing something that is worth about 5% of what they've charged. But because no one really understands it, it becomes, that's the value there. It's sort of like a strange thing. And yeah, it's like a hidden value. Whereas I think with what you do, Jack, if you didn't do the plumbing and the toilet just erupted into the house, that's a very obvious value that you can measure. People don't want that. So, yeah, I think a bit of a charlatan maybe slightly, but not really. But the environment I'm in does mean that I have to sort of imbue a sense of confidence into whoever I'm working with. Yeah. Weird one.
And I will go the last question. In one word, how are you feeling time these days?
Scars.
Scars. Fleeting.
Ooh, this is abundance.
Oh, the other way.
Yep.
Nice. There you go.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Cheers.
I will end my session with an interview with Time Bank, who is running by Sarah Pape, which is started as an art project in eFlux in 2010, and from 2013 she changed into association, and she's still learning for 5 years in Den Haag. Time Bank is using a currency with time by exchanging labor.
Then do you become more time sensitive?
No, I have to say I don't really. But more time sensitive. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But it's just like, yeah.
You try to make him meet him.
I get more aware of my labor.
Work out.
And maybe not exactly in the time. I also have to say, because I do a lot with Time Bank. Very time sensitive. Okay, I need this and this. I want to invest like my work in Time Bank for 5 hours this week. You know, some people are very sensitive with it, other people not. Yeah.
And then
Because maybe also because for me it's and for a lot of people it's also really much fun, and I think this is like the core. It's like it's really great to just go buy fucking euros and just so much fun. Yeah, you need time. Yeah, to do this, definitely. Like I just said, like if you want to do something, first you have to do a favor, like do a skill for someone else. You need to have time for that and energy and yeah.
going live. Oh, we're back. Okay, thank you very much, Juhi. That was really good. Now I've turned from panel guy back to presenter guy, and we have Alex up next, who's just setting up his thing. Oh, there's something hidden happening under the table. It's quite exciting.
I just want to say, Jack, you did really well on the panel.
Oh, you did even better, Joe. Congratulations. Hey, Ryan, you're in the crowd. Are you enjoying yourself so far, Ryan? How you doing?
Having the time of my life.
That's great. Remember Ryan's voice from yesterday? He sang.
It is beautiful.
He did the singing. Okay. So what else happened in the room, Joe?
Jack is wandering around the room right now.
I've got a wireless mic. This is how this is happening.
He's working his way through the crowd. He's having quite a hard time because of so many of them.
God, excuse me.
Oh, is he okay?
Oh,
He's getting lost
just,
in there.
just
Don't
squeezing
get
through.
caught in the crowd.
Oh, I'm over here with John. John, how's it going?
Doing quite well, Jack. Thanks for asking.
So, where's Jerry today? Is Jerry not around?
Jerry had to catch a flight back home, so he's unfortunately not with us today.
Oh, sad. Okay, never mind.
I'm sorry to stop you there, Jack. You're going to have to work your way back through the crowd.
Oh, well,
I think we're
one
ready
sec.
for Alex
Hello.
to start now.
Hi.
Okay. Alex,
Hello.
how's it going?
Oh, it's going swell. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, without further ado, this is Alexander Cromer. Put your hands together.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. As our wonderful, beautiful host mentioned, my name is Alexander. And today, as you can tell by this beautiful graphic of the ocean, I will be discussing the ocean in the School of the Invisible. So let me just start with a brief introduction on what's happening in my life right now. So my interest in the ocean actually stems from my thesis research on Black ontology, which for those of you at home and here, I know ontology is kind of like a very complicated word. In essence, it is the theory of being. So Black ontology is kind of like the theory of blackness and being in the United States. Well, in particular, my interests are in the United States. And within this field, there's this idea of a nonlinear existence that is often represented by water. The poet Kamau Brathwaite uses water in his concept of dialectics, which replaces dialectics in that discussions, ideologies, systems, and other such things exist in the black hemisphere, weave together, reshape, separate, flow back, and come forward again. It's an idea that represents how the past never truly stays in the past, but is circulated, just as tides circulate water, reshape it, and bring it back to crash against the shores. So I like this concept a lot. This speaks to a very fascinating facet of the ocean that really holds my interest. That is, the ocean and the bodies of water are more than just the physical sum of their parts. And so with this brief, Reversing Economic Mania, I think it's called, I wanted to use this brief as an arm of my research for my thesis and investigate the practical applications of the ocean and water in general. I was curious how the oceans, as a body, as a metaphysical place, and as a physical place, fit into economy. What happens on the open waters? How does this contribute to local and global economies? So after some research and fieldwork, I uncovered some nicey, juicy tidbits of info that I'll cover just real quick. I know this is like the boring part, and then we'll go into the exciting part soon. So in general, just some hard facts. The ocean has about 24 trillion American dollars in assets. Simmer down, this basically equates to $2.5 trillion in GDP, making it the 7th largest economy after the UK, which is pretty fascinating to me if we're going to contain the ocean as a kind of like a body that contributes to the overall economy and culture of the world. But in particular, I wanted to find out how, in relation to Amsterdam, where we are currently studying, and Turkey, how does the ocean connect the two? Historically, as we know, as we have learned, there has been a great trade and political a relationship between Turkey and Amsterdam, and the Netherlands in general. But the thing that I found most interesting in relation to these two nations and the ocean was they're both fishing communities. They both heavily rely on the industry of fishing. During my research, I uncovered some very interesting things. One of which is actually a radio show that I covered. So this is like recovered found footage that I found through some archive dives. And it's from, there's an intro and a thing. And I'll just, let me pull it up here. And I think you'll find it very interesting. Sorry. Oh, did I find it? Hello, and welcome to WKPP Smooth Jazz Storytime. I'm Darius, and I'll be your host. Today I would like to share with you a series of stories of two widely different cities, separated by kilometers and kilometers of land and sea, culture and languages, food and smell, though connected by one almost universal passion, the ocean, and the fruits that she brings. So, pour yourself a wine, snuggle up to your lover, and enjoy this tale of two cities. I find myself at a bus stop in the Dutch countryside. There is rain falling from swollen clouds that have perched themselves in the nest of the sky. They cover the azure like a chrysalis of gray steel, and all around, will-o-wisps awash with the color of wet gently knock on the roof of the bus stop, and onto green stacks of grass that are being wooed by the shouts of Dutch wind, and onto the cold concrete that is firm and relentless, onto my skin, and it feels like a soft kiss. In the distance, the sounds of cars with their rubber keels navigating elevated banks of highway. It is a sound that cascades outwards across the flatlands until it meets the thunderous roar of the ocean. I imagine their windshields being wiped by plastic black wipers that go ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Before long, a white van slowly meanders its way to me and stops in front of the bus shelter. It opens its firth, and inside I see a stout man sitting in the driver's seat. He is wearing a blue knit cap and a gray canvas jumpsuit. His mustache and beard are long, curly, flowing, like seaweed dancing to the rhythm of the moon. He is a large man. He is an old man. His knotted knuckles grip a well-worn steering wheel as if, through it, he is bearing the weight of the world, a titan lost in time, a vehicular atlas. I climb aboard and sit down. Then we drive off, deeper into the countryside, down narrow streets that seem to stretch on until they meet the sky. Our destination, Urk, a small fishing village in North Holland whose residents have long been envoys of the ocean. For centuries, it existed as a small island in what was the South Sea until 1939, when the Dutch connected it to the mainland via dike construction, thus reducing the salty waters of the South Sea to the freshwater of IJsselmeer, and in the process reclaiming seabed, producing large amounts of land where there was none. Within a few years, the island village, which had gotten used to separation and isolation from the world, had suddenly become connected, enveloped by the pseudopods of Holland. Atlas and me and the white van lazily navigate through this new and fresh land covered with the green farms to the crest of Urk, coming to a stop in front of the Gemeentehuis, the village's town hall. A modern building, its fresh red brick and dazzling geometry told me so, and above its door a flag ripples in the breeze. It has a large blue stripe in the middle, with smaller white and red stripes above and below. In the center, a large and white image of a single perch fish swims amongst the blue, a testament to the influence fishing has in this village. Beyond importance or even necessity, fishing resides in the very core of Urk's existence. 40% of the town's population depend on the industry. It gives the village work, it gives the village food, it gives the village economy, and its culture and its soul. Across from the town hall begins the ancient village of Urk. Its red cobblestone streets adrift and unwind themselves, twisting this way and that like tributaries that flow downwards to a harbor filled with fishing boats, old and new, large and small, or where the heart of the city resides, whose rhythmic beat are waves crashing against the rocky jetties that protrude outward into the IJsselmeer. All around, children with their fishing rods are attached to the harbor, their hooked lines sinking to the bottom of the calm waters, silently searching for the eel, smelt, or perch that have traipsed into the harbor from the depths of the IJsselmeer. Elsewhere, old fishermen gather and sit in circles to drink beer and relive memories of the sea. Their faces are wrinkled and worn. Their hands are leather. They wear black berets and a handkerchief loosely tied around their necks. Hanging from their left ears are golden rings with the figure of a fishing vessel affixed in the middle. One of them taps his wooden clogs against a stone on the ground as he tells a story. Clack, clack, clack. They are retired skippers, having once commanded vessels in their youth. Their bones are too old for that now, but the ocean still resides within them. And in the distance, there is a fishing vessel so far out to sea that their steel lips kiss the sky. The old fisherman, whose clog still clacks against the stone skin of Urk, tells me that these ships are outrigger trawlers returning to unload the day's catch. You see, in the morning, before the sun wakes up and yawns over the eastern horizon, the vessels fill themselves with eager fishermen and set off into the sea. They sail northwards to the North Sea, who is fed by the chilled currents of the Atlantic Ocean from the northwest above the United Kingdom. It is there that the trawlers drop their nets, like the gaping maws of whales, and filter out flatfish and shrimp to bring back for auction. Once back, the trawlers find respite in the harbor. Their lights turn off. They slumber in the undulating waves of the IJsselmeer until they are awakened to repeat the journey. And that far-off vessel is closer now. I follow it as it approaches the harbor, its long and slender body sliding through the dark waters effortlessly. It docks itself, as if symbolically, nearby a statue of a woman that vainly looks outward past the IJsselmeer and towards the North Sea. Etched into her eyes are hope and longing, infinitely awaiting the return of her husband, our son who went out to sea. It is a monument to the fishermen who have paid for their trade with their lives, their bodies forever lost to the time and the ocean. Inscribed on the statue is a poem. Here they turned the stern, and by whom stayed behind them was waiting for them. Here they were prayed for, and so intensely as tidings were brought. Many stayed in the sea. Here their names are etched for us to remember them. I put my hands onto her feet. They are warm and vibrant. They vibrate with the souls of those she waits for, souls awash with the saline memories of the ocean. You're listening to Story Hour on WKBP Smooth Jazz. We'll continue our story right after this short commercial break.
Hey, baby. My name's Dwayne Jenkins, sole proprietor of Dwayne Jenkins' famous undercarriage maintenance and fish fry. Now, there are only a couple of things that Dwayne truly enjoy. Number one, when Dwayne do the thing, best believe Dwayne gonna do it right. Number two, a whole mess of fried fish in your gullet is probably the best thing Dwayne ever seen. And number three, there ain't nothing like a fresh, clean undercarriage. So come on down to Dwayne Jenkins' famous undercarriage maintenance and fish fry. For a limited time, get your fish free with the purchase of our full-service undercarriage cleaning.
Dwayne Jenkins, a famous undercarriage maintenance and fish fry. Rubbed, smoked, and handcrafted. Every day we make it, best believe we gonna make it the best we can. Thank you, Dwayne Jenkins, for that interlude. Dwayne has been providing sponsorship for WKBP Jazz for quite a while now, and his fish are truly the best. His undercarriage maintenance is also very nice. I would advise that you all go down and purchase his special package. So welcome back. As I said, I'm Darius, and you're listening to Story Hour. We're just gonna jump right back into the story here in a tale of two fishing cities. So I hope you got another glass of wine, because you know I do. In the morning, soft paws carry dogs and cats to and fro, the rambling tertiary citizens of Istanbul. Once finding their street-side lofts, they lay down and close their little eyes. Quickly they are soundly sleeping whilst the silent and violent cacophony of the city soul sheaths the stone that line the streets. Elsewhere, as the sun lifts herself out of her bed, moisture lifts from the waters of the Golden Horn, the daughter of the Bosphorus, and forms a haze that indolently rolls up the hills of Turkey, lingering at their crests like a soft blanket. A small ferry traverses the Golden Horn downwards to the Bosphorus, the waterway that separates Europe and Asia, and then southeast into the Sea of Marmara, towards the Prince Islands. And there I sit, holding a glass full of chai, whose warmth penetrates my skin and bones and strokes the essence of me, looking at the wake of the ferry as it scuttles along its route. Engines tumble and turn and roar, large propellers that are modern whirling dervishes, ceremoniously imbuing the clear blue waters of the Marmara with the benevolence of men. Eventually I arrive at the biggest of the Prince Islands, Buyukada. Its steep hills lined with the large summer homes of the wealthy. They are mostly empty, save the ghosts who stay and maintain them while their masters are away. And up and down the hills trot horse-drawn carriages, loaded with tourists and their cameras, wives and their husbands, lovers and their passions. The clot, clot, clot of horse hooves cuts through the hum of the island. The birds singing and carrying on, and the trees whistling in the salted sea breeze, colorful flowers growing from the large plants that arch themselves over narrow streets that run upwards to the top of the island. And at the top, the Aya Yorgi Church, an Orthodox cathedral at the mouth of a path made of myriad small slabs of limestone, a pathway that hardly moves, almost as straight as the roads that cut through the Dutch countryside. You remember the ones that sit atop the fresh land made from the South Sea? Though this pathway to Aya Yorgi cuts through the mountain of Buyukada, tremendously steep, tremendously long. As I climb the pathway, I imagine a pilgrimage that many have made before to the site of the spiritual, the merchants and the tourists, the devout and the atheists seeking aesthetic satiation, the amateur fishermen that have traveled upwards to pray or to go look out to see the Marmara Sea to get a better view of the waters, where to go, where to go, where to fish, where to net. A set of chrome binoculars stand at the edge of the southern cliffside. I walk up to it, and the sound of a single lira coin goes ka-chink into its slot. The binoculars become activated. These two brown eyes peered through the lens of the binoculars, and almost as if they were guiding my view, they immediately set their sights on a small motorboat about a kilometer off the coast of Buyukada. On it, a father was wrangling a net, pulling into the boat his catches of the day. His son, standing readily next to him, was pulling the fish from the net, putting it into a small bucket. Father and son, two generations of fishermen together, their lives controlled by the limbs of this ocean, this terra nullius, this no man's land. As I walk away from the binoculars, I notice that the boat, a single black dot on the grand sea, begins its way back home. And thank you for joining Storytime. I'm your host, Darius, and this is WKPP Jazz. Coming up next is The Love Cruise, so make sure to stick around, featuring a full hour of your favorite R&B jams. So stay tuned to rock the boat with us. You'll be making waves all night long.
Congratulations, Alex.
Thank you very much, Alex. Who would have thought literature about the ocean would have been so effective? I've always found it boring and unromantic. Okay, That was the end of the School of the Invisible.
Yes.
Jack, would you like to give your thoughts?
I just thought Alex's voice, what a gift.
A really good gift. Really
I
good,
could listen
Alex.
to him speak all day. And you know what? You can, because we have a whole load of podcasts that Alex is the host of in our backlog over at SoundCloud. I think it's soundcloud.com
I think it's
/ something or other. It's
Yeah.
called 13 Steps Below anyway. And we did about like 8 episodes last year. And Alex and Heather, another student at the University Underground, are the hosts. But does anybody in the room have any questions for Alex? Or Juhi, because we didn't Q&A Juhi. So maybe if Juhi, you can come up to the hot desk thing.
Jack's gone rogue.
I've gone rogue, I've got the wireless mic. Now, if there's any questions, maybe Ryan has a question, or maybe our tutors, Lauren and Sharon, have a question. I'm going to pass it over to Lauren. There you go.
Hi guys, School of the Invisible. Could you tell us something about the invisible things that you've looked at? So maybe Alex, if you could start. What are the maybe invisible connections that you found between Istanbul and Amsterdam?
That's a good question. Then thank you, Lauren, very much. So some of the invisible connections. Well, first, as I've mentioned very briefly, I started to look at the invisible economy of the oceans, so far, like the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, the Pacific, and the invisible economies within those oceans. I uncovered a lot of very obvious data. I'm sure most of us know, but shipping is a very large part of our global economy. And over 90% of the things that are shipped via the ocean, which is a very interesting thing. From there, I researched via the World Wildlife Federation, WWF. That always confuses me because I think of the Wrestling Federation in the States when I was growing up. So excuse me for that little slip. But in any case, so the WWF came up with this whole report on the contribution that the oceans in total have to the global economy. And beyond shipping, beyond fishing, beyond those obvious things, there's also invisible contributions that the fish and the wildlife contribute in and of themselves to carbon absorption through the air and through just general circulation of nutrients in the ocean, which thus provide us with protein. I think around 20% of the world depend on fish protein as their main source of protein, so it's very important for this economy, this kind of internal economy to keep growing. In particular, between Turkey and Amsterdam in the Netherlands, as you know, Lauren, we have the whole tulip trade, and I did some research with this artists organization that had done an exhibition in the Rijksmuseum a few years ago. I believe they're called Artis. I'm sorry, I didn't write the name of their organization down. Which, if you check our website later, I can post that somehow. In any case, they had gathered a bunch of art in relation to our economies. So there was the tulip trade, which is obvious and very important. Besides that, there were a lot of there's the spice trade, and the fishing industry had a very important role in both economies. As the Dutch would come to Istanbul, there would be a lot of fishing that they would use to sustain themselves. And also when the Turkish came to Amsterdam. And thus kind of creating a culinary trade of sorts of different preparations of fish, different ways to cook and store and eat fish. So that's why I found it very interesting. In addition to other things that happened within the fishing industry, like illegal fishing and slavery on fishing boats in the open waters. But this kind of invisible microeconomy that existed within the fishing community between these two nations was something that was very interesting to me.
Very convincing answer, Alex. Sharon, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question to Juhi. Hey.
Hello.
You were talking about the blurring line between work time and pleasure time, and our three panelists were all kind of reflecting on that on the personal life. And I was wondering whether you see it as a kind of a universal phenomena, or is it a space-related, generation-related phenomena? Or in other questions, do you think your parents, for example, looked for leisure in work?
Definitely, my dad doesn't like his job. That's what he said. I was asking to my dad, do you like your job? I'm doing for money. And I think it's more happening in creative discipline. And in that sense, I want to ask you back to you later about how you're balancing between. And that's what I especially found during my residency during summer, that artists doesn't really earn money and they always have another job, but they still call themselves as artists when people ask you, what do you do? But beside that, they always have a practice which can be related to the artists, the artwork they're doing, or doesn't necessarily related. That I found, but that doesn't mean that the art they're creating is not valuable. So, but sometimes this project that started as art project becomes very valuable economically. So that relationship and the balance I found very interesting. That's why I was started to have a question, and now I want to question you back, how are you balancing? Because you already
Girl!
because you already change your artistic practice into money making somehow. I don't know how exactly.
The somehow is
somehow. So I want to ask you back, how are you balancing between?
Well, personally, I get commissions, gigs, and this is indeed, it's my work, so this is how I make money, and of course it's also my hobby, my art. But the more I do it, the more I personally realize that it's almost an unnatural state of production of money, you know? It almost feels like the natural process of the production of money is indeed just working in order to have leisure time, and the combination of work and leisure time feels to me not only unnatural but privileged above all, you know? And that's something that I think that this is why I'm wondering whether it's something which is specifically Western, where the West can afford, you know, funding art, etc., and whether other cultures in which art takes a different, you know, doesn't have a monetary position within society, whether it is seen as work at all. So my answer is a question.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, any other questions from anybody else in the crowd? Or is that it? Are we going to wrap it up?
I think that's it. Again, Alex and Juhi, thank you so much.
Thank
you were
you.
wonderful, wonderful people on the panel. On the panel? Yeah. Okay, so that was the end of the School of the Invisible. Tomorrow at 2:30, we will have the School of Value, who will be with Ryan and Luke. So someone else will have to take the role of the blackboarder, but we can do that. It's fine. Don't worry. Thank you very much again. Oh, wait, Jack.
I was just going to say 2:30.
Yeah, 2:30.
I've got my dentist appointment at 2:30.
Very nice. With that, we'll wrap it up.
Okay, bye.